Demigons and Semi-Devils. Author, Jin Yong. Chapter 1 Part B. A young disciple of Zuo Zimu's jumped out right in front of from behind Zuo Zimu, blocking Duan Yu's exit. Because you don't know any kung fu, if you leave like this, it really is no bother. But why did you say that our little contest is worse than a monkey show? Seems rather harsh, don't you think? I give you two choices, either we spar a little and let you have a taste of this worse than monkey sword skill, or you can go and kowtow 8 times to my master, and then say bullshit 3 times. Duan Yu laughed. You crapped? How come it doesn't stink? The young man did not take well to that comment, responding by simply throwing a ferocious punch straight at Duan Yu's face. Just as it looked as if Duan Yu was going to get his face smashed, an object came flying through the air and wrapped around the young man's arm. This object felt cold and slippery to the touch, yet somehow firm. As soon as it wrapped around the young man's arm, it started to slide. The young man pulled back his arm in shock. Looking down, he finds out that the object was a snake. The snake is about 2 foot long and green with red markings. The young man let out a huge scream and started to try to shake the snake off. However, the snake seems to be quite comfortable on his arm and did not want to leave no matter what. Suddenly Gong Guangjia screamed, "Snake! Snake!" Everyone turns in time to see his face filled with fear. His hands were inside of his sleeves, reaching and grabbing for something in his back. But of course he could not reach it, so in panic he started to rip his cloth off. This drastic change happened so quickly and was so unexpected that nobody has recovered from the initial shock when they suddenly heard a single solitary laugh coming from above their heads. All at once everyone looked up and saw a young girl sitting on a roof beam with snakes in her hand. She had dimples like flowers. This girl looked to be around 16 or 17, dressed in green. In her hands were 10 or so foot long snakes. These snakes vary in colors, but from their triangular heads, it was obvious they were poisonous. But this girl did not seem to mind at all, as if they were toys in her hand. Everyone only glanced at her for a moment, for Gong Guangjia and his martial brothers screaming and yelping made everyone turn their eyes back onto them. Only Duan Yu kept his eyes on the girl. The girl's feet were swinging back and forth, as if it was lots of fun sitting there on top of the beam. So he asked, "Miss, are you the one that rescued me?" The girl answered, "That bad man hit you, why didn't you hit back?" Duan Yu shook his head, "I don't know how to hit back." Suddenly everyone collectively let out an "ah." Duan Yu turned to see Zuo Zimu holding a blood-stained sword in his hand. A red snake is lying on the ground, in 2 pieces, obviously killed by him. Gong Guangjia by now is half naked, but still jumping around like a clown. He is trying to grab a small green snake that is crawling around on his back. A couple of times it looked as if he almost got it, but he never came up with it. Zuo Zimu commanded, "Guangjia, stand still and don't move." Gong Guangjia froze, and then a flash of white, and the snake is on the ground in 2 pieces. Zuo Zimu's sword speed was blinding. Most of the people present did not see what happened until the snake is on the ground, yet Gong Guangjia's back is left unharmed. Everyone present could not help but cheer. The girl sitting on the beam shouted down, "Hey! Hey! Old man with the beard, what did you kill my 2 pet snakes for? If you keep this up I'm going to stop being so courteous." Zuo Zimu replied angrily, "Which household did you crawl out of? What are you doing here?" All the while secretly marveling at the girl, this girl who stealthily climbed up onto the beam without anybody noticing. Although everyone's attention was focused on the contest between the factions, but that still should not excuse letting a person climb up onto the beam unnoticed. If a word of this gets out, how much face would no measure sword lose? The girl's feet swung back and forth. Her shoes are of light green color with a couple of delicate yellow flowers sewn on the sides, and basically dressed as a little girl. Zuo Zimu continued, "Jump down this instant." Suddenly Duan Yu blurted out, "From that high? She'll get hurt. Go tell some people to bring a ladder." A couple of people snickered a bit at that comment. The female disciples under the West faction all thought, "This guy has the look of a well-educated gentleman." But it turns out he's as dense as a piece of wood. The girl got up there without anyone noticing. Why would she need a ladder to get down? The girl replied, "First you have to compensate for my snakes, then I'll get down to talk to you." Zuo Zimu answers, "What's the big deal about 2 little snakes? You can just go and easily catch 2 more just anywhere." He is not worried about the girl because of her young age. What worries him is that this girl might have someone very powerful, such as her father or master, backing her up. Therefore, He is actually reasonably polite towards her. The girl grinned and replied, "If it's so easy, why don't you go and catch them for me?" Zuozimu switched the subject, "Jump down." The young girl simply answered no. Zuozimu threatened, "If you don't come down, then I'm going to have to make you come down." The girl let out a little laugh before answering, "Hee hee, come and try then. If you can make me get down, then you are really something." Zuozimu is still a leader of a sect, no matter what he can't be seen actually fighting a little girl. So he turned to Shuangqing, "Sister Sin, could you please send one of your female disciples up there to get her down?" Shuangqing replied coldly, "We don't have anyone here in the West faction with that level of Qinggong, lightness kung fu." Zuozimu's face dropped one more shade and was just about to answer back when he was interrupted by the young girl, "If you don't compensate me for my snakes, then I'm going to show you a thing or two." Reaching into her pouch, she took out a furry thing and tossed it at Guangjia. Guangjia figured this was some weird flying weapon, so he dared not grab it with his hands and just tried to get out of the way. But who would have guessed that this furry little thing was alive? With a twist in midair, it landed squarely on Guangjia's back. It is only now that everyone saw what the thing was, a gray-colored marten. A cute weasel-like creature that can climb trees, this marten was amazingly quick, crawling all over Guangjia's back, chest, face, and neck as if it were flat ground. Guangjia tried to grab the little creature, but it was way too fast for him. So he just ended up looking like a clown with a furry ball shooting up and down his body. Duanyu couldn't help but laugh, "Truly amazing, now this is interesting." This marten is only about a foot or so long, its eyes are blood red, and it has claws as sharp as razors. Very soon, Guangjia's upper body is covered with countless streaks of scratch marks. The young girl hissed a couple of times, a white shadow flew right at Guangjia's face. Suddenly the marten has pounced onto Guangjia's face and stopped there, its furry tail swiping back and forth across his eyes. Guangjia immediately tried to grab the marten. But by the time his hands got there, the marten was already behind his neck and Guangjia almost dug his own eyes out. Zuozimu stepped up and his sword came flying in. At this time the marten has ended up on Guangjia's face once again. Zuozimu aimed his sword at the marten, but the marten has already scrambled to the back of Guangjia's neck. Zuozimu's sword stopped just in time so that it is just touching the eyelid of Guangjia. Although he missed the marten, the people present gasped in admiration. For if the sword had gone just a bit further, Guangjia's eye would have been gone. Shuangqing thought to herself, "Brother Zuo's sword skill is indeed extraordinary, even I can't match him." Just this plundered crossing of the golden needle, Jinzhen Dujia, is proof enough of that. Swish. Swoosh. Zuozimu linked together 4 more moves one after another, but although his moves were fast to a rare degree, the marten is still one step faster. That young girl shouted down, "Old man with a beard, your sword skills are actually pretty good." She then hissed a couple of more times, the marten suddenly scurried downwards and disappeared. Zuozimu was taken aback for a moment. Guangjia suddenly started grabbing and scratching his legs, it turns out the marten has gotten into his trousers. By this time Duanyu has almost doubled over in laughter, clapping his hand, he commented, "Now this is a real eye-opener, this trip was worth it after all." Guangjia literally ripped his trousers off, revealing a pair of hairy legs. The young girl shouted, "Like to bully other people, don't you? Well, let's see how you like it if you are stripped naked." Then she hissed twice more. This marten turned out to be quite obedient as it immediately crawled into Guangjia's underwear. With all the girls present in the atrium, there is no way Guangjia is going to take off his underwear. So all he could do was hop around for a bit and smacking his butt and thighs with his hands. Suddenly he let out a scream and started desperately, albeit very awkwardly, making his way out of the atrium as fast as he could. Just as he is about to exit through the door, someone suddenly popped in from outside. Bang! Both of them were in a hurry and they ran right into one another. Guangjia was knocked a step back, but the person that was entering the atrium fell back and landed in his back. Zuozimu cried out involuntarily, "Brother, wrong?" Now, Guangjia had to ignore the marten that's moving all around his pants as he reached down to try and help the person up. Suddenly the marten moved on to a particularly sensitive spot, forcing Guangjia to shriek and grab for the marten, thus making the man fall down again. The young girl let out a rather coquettish laugh, Alright, I think you have had enough. She let out a rather long hiss. That marten suddenly appeared from Gong Guangjie's underwear, crawled up the walls, jumped on the beam, and returned to the young girl's lap. The young girl grabbed a snake by its tail and dangled it in front of the marten. Good boy, here's your reward. The marten grabbed the snake and devoured it. Turns out that the snakes were food for the marten. Duan Yu was simply amazed by all of this. He has never even heard of anything remotely close to this. The marten finished eating the snake and crawled back into the young girl's pouch. Gong Guangjie helped that man up again, asked in surprise, "Martial Uncle Rong, you alright? What's the matter?" Zuo Zimu ran up to his martial brother. Rong Ziju's eyes are wide open in a stare and his face is one of indignation and hate, however, he is not breathing. Zuo Zimu is shocked tremendously. He immediately tried to rescue his martial brother by giving him some of his own inner force. But he was not able to do anything. Zuo Zimu knows that although Rong Ziju's kung fu is not as strong as his own, it is still much stronger than Gong Guangjie. The fact that not only was he not able to avoid Gong Guangjie, but was killed by it, means that he must have already been gravely injured. So he immediately opened up Rong Ziju's shirt, exposing his chest. On his chest, written in big black letters, were the words, "Divine Farmer Clan here to exterminate no measure sword, Shen Yi Bang Ju Mia Wu Liangjian." More than just several persons screamed involuntarily. The 9 words, note, it is actually 8 characters in Chinese, were not written by ink, nor is it carved out using a sharp object. A poison that caused the flesh to rot was applied in the patterns of the words on Rong Ziju's chest. The rotten flesh sank into his chest and formed the words. How can Zuo Zimu not be furious? He gave the sword in his hand a shake, making it hum, and shouted, "Well, let's see if it is Divine Farmer destroying no measure or no measure eliminating Divine Farmer? If this murder is not avenged, how can I call myself a man?" He turns around and inspects Rong Ziju's body, but other than the words, he shows no sign of injury. He commands, "Guang Hao, Guangjie, go check outside." Gong Guanghao and Gong Guangjie are 2 of his proudest disciples. They pulled out their sword and ran outside. By now the atrium is in a mess, everyone gathered around Rong Ziju's body discussing and analyzing the situation, completely ignoring Duan Yu and the girl on the beam. Ma Wuda commented, "Divine Farmer Clan's behavior is just getting worse and worse. Brother Zuo, how did you become enemies with them?" Note, Ma Wuda is addressing Zuo Zimu as a brother out of friendship, not actual martial or real brotherhood. Zuo Zimu thought about his martial brother's tragic and terrible death, swallowed hard, and answered, "For some herbs." Autumn of last year, 4 lodge heads of Divine Farmer Clan came to visit, asking access to the back mountains in our control to collect some herbs. Collecting herbs is really no big deal. Divine Farmer Clan originally started collecting and selling herbs, and there is no grudge whatsoever between us 2 clans. But Mr. Ma, you know very well that our back mountains are forbidden to outsiders. Not even the best of friends is allowed to go there, not to mention a clan that we never had any contact with like Divine Farmer. This is the rule ever since the start of our sect, we dare not disobey it. Actually, it really isn't anything serious. The young girl on the beam put the snakes in her hand into a little bamboo basket she has tied around her waist. She took out some melon seeds and started eating them, her 2 feet are still swinging back and forth. Suddenly, she took a melon seed and threw it at Duan Yu, hitting him right on the forehead. Laughing, she asked, "Want some melon seeds? Come on up." Duan Yu answered, "I can't without any ladders." The young girl replied, "Well, that's no problem." She untied a green silk ribbon from her waist and dangled it down. "Grab a hold of the belt and I'll pull you up." Duan Yu answered, "I'm heavy, you can't lift me." The young girl giggled and replied, "Oh, give it a try, won't kill you." Duan Yu grabbed onto the ribbon that is by now right in front of him. The young girl cautioned, "Hold on tight." She lightly lifted her hand and Duan Yu's feet are off the floor. Hand over hand, the young girl easily lifted Duan Yu up onto the beam. Duan Yu said, "Such an interesting marten you got, so obedient as well." The young girl took out the marten from her pouch, holding it up to Duan Yu. The marten's furs were shiny and its red eyes stared at Duan Yu in wonder, just as cute as can be. Duan Yu asked, "Can I touch it?" The young girl answered, "Go right ahead." Duan Yu started to stroke the back of the marten, feeling the smoothness and warmth of the marten. Suddenly the marten hissed and jumped back into the young girl's pouch. Catching Duan Yu completely by surprise, he lost his balance and almost fell off. The young girl grabbed his collar and pulled him in right next to her. With a smile she said, "You really don't know any kung fu, how strange." Duan Yu asked, "What's so strange about it?" The girl answered, "Well, you don't know any kung fu, and you came here all by yourself, then you are bound to be bullied by these bad people. Why did you come here?" Duan Yu was just about to answer when footsteps interrupted him. Gong Guanghao and Gong Guangjia just came rushing back into the atrium. By now, Gong Guangjia has put on another pair of pants, although he still hasn't put a shirt back on yet. Both of them have a look of panic on their faces. Walking up to Zuo Zimu, Gong Guanghao reported, "Master, Divine Farmer clan is gathered on the mountaintop facing ours. They have blocked every path and say that no one is allowed to pass. We saw that the enemies are here en masse, without specific orders from our master, we did not dare to start fighting." Zuo Zimu nodded, How many of them were there?" Gong Guanghao replied, "Around 70 or 80. Zuo Zimu let out a little sneer, 70 or 80, and they want to exterminate no measure sword? I'm afraid it might not be that easy." Gong Guangjia held up a letter. "They have shot this arrow up with this letter attached to it." Zuo Zimu glanced at it, seeing that the envelope read, "Written to, Zuo Zimu." He did not feel like touching the letter, so he commanded, "Open it up and see what it says." Gong Guangjia opened the seal and took out the letter.